There's a screenshot of a text message sitting in The Rock's phone that represents the birth of his social media empire. The message reveals his deepest insecurity, his biggest fear, and the moment he decided to show the world who he really was behind the muscles and the movies. What he shared in that vulnerable moment wasn't planned, wasn't calculated, and wasn't approved by any publicist. But it became the most powerful piece of content he's ever created. December 8, 2012, 3:22 a.m. Dwayne Johnson was sitting in his home gym in Miami, not working out, but staring at his phone and fighting with demons that had been haunting him for months. The gym, usually his sanctuary and source of strength, felt more like a prison that night. He just finished what should have been a career highlight, the press tour for Fast 5, which was breaking box office records and establishing him as one of Hollywood's most bankable action stars. But instead of celebrating, Dwayne was struggling with something that success couldn't fix: a deep, persistent feeling that he was living a lie. The text message he was about to send would accidentally change not just his career, but the entire landscape of celebrity social media. But in that moment, he wasn't thinking about strategy or brand building. He was thinking about whether he could continue pretending to be invincible when he felt more vulnerable than ever. The message was supposed to go to Dr. Jennifer Martinez, his therapist, who had been helping him work through what he privately called his imposter syndrome. Despite all his success, Dwayne constantly felt like he was one mistake away from being exposed as a fraud, a wrestler who got lucky in Hollywood, a tough guy who was actually sensitive, a motivational figure who struggled with his own motivation. But at 3:22 a.m., exhausted and emotional, he made a mistake that would change his life forever. Instead of sending the message to Dr. Martinez, he accidentally sent it to Sarah Kim, his 26-year-old social media manager, who had been trying for months to convince him to be more personal and authentic in his online presence. The message read, "I'm sitting in my gym at 3 a.m. wondering if anyone would care about my success if they knew how scared and insecure I am most of the time. The strong guy everyone sees is sometimes the weakest person in the room." Dwayne realized his mistake immediately and felt a wave of panic. This wasn't the kind of message a major movie star was supposed to send to anyone, let alone an employee who managed his public image. He quickly sent a follow-up text: "Wrong person. Please delete that and pretend you never saw it." But Sarah Kim, who had been working in social media for 5 years and understood the power of authentic connection better than most people in Hollywood, saw something in that message that Dwayne couldn't see himself. At 7:15 a.m., Sarah called Dwayne, waking him from the few hours of sleep he'd managed to get. "Dwayne, we need to talk about that message you sent," she said. "Sarah, I'm sorry about that. I was having a rough night and—" "Don't apologize," Sarah interrupted. "That message is the most powerful thing you've ever written. And I think you should share it with your fans." Dwayne was quiet for a long moment. "Are you insane? That message makes me look weak, vulnerable, human. That's not the brand we've built." "Exactly," Sarah replied. "The brand we've built is impressive, but it's not connecting with people on an emotional level. Your social media engagement is good, but it's not great. People admire The Rock, but they don't feel like they know Dwayne Johnson." Sarah had been studying social media analytics and psychology as part of her master's degree in digital communications, and she'd noticed something that most celebrity social media managers missed. The most engaging content wasn't the most polished or impressive, it was the most relatable and human. "Think about it," she continued. "Everyone who follows you sees the success, the movies, the workouts, the motivation. But they don't see the person behind all of that. They don't see someone who struggles with the same doubts and fears that they do." Dwayne was skeptical. "Sarah, my entire career is built on being strong, reliable, someone people can look up to. If I start admitting weakness and insecurity, why would anyone want to follow me or watch my movies?" "Because," Sarah said, "strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about being afraid and moving forward anyway. And the people who follow you? They're not just fans of your success. They're people dealing with their own struggles who need to know that it's possible to be successful and human at the same time." The conversation lasted 2 hours, with Sarah presenting research about authentic social media engagement, examples of other celebrities who had benefited from vulnerability, and her vision for how Dwayne could build a more meaningful connection with his audience. But the real turning point came when Sarah asked him a question that cut to the heart of his internal struggle. "Dwayne, who do you want to be? The actor who impresses people with his success, or the person who inspires people with his honesty?" That afternoon, Dwayne made a decision that his publicist, his agents, and most of his team thought was career suicide. He posted a slightly edited version of his 3 a.m. text message on Instagram, along with a photo of himself in his gym, looking tired and reflective rather than powerful and motivational. The caption read, 3 a.m. in my gym and I'm wondering, do we really connect with each other when all we show is our strength? I'm successful, blessed, and grateful for everything in my life. But I'm also human. I have fears, insecurities, and moments when the strong guy everyone sees feels like the weakest person in the room. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what makes us real. Hashtag 3amthoughts, hashtag human, hashtag real. Dwayne posted the content and immediately felt a mixture of relief and terror. He just shared his deepest vulnerability with 8.5 million followers, and he had no idea how they would respond. Within an hour, he had his answer. The post received more engagement in 60 minutes than any content he'd ever shared. But more than the numbers, it was the quality of the responses that shocked him. Instead of disappointment or loss of respect, his followers responded with gratitude, recognition, and their own stories of struggle and vulnerability. Thank you for being real. I needed to hear this today. This is why you're my hero. Not because you're strong, but because you're honest. I'm going through a tough time and feeling like a failure. Knowing that someone as successful as you has doubts too makes me feel less alone. The comments kept coming, thousands of them, each one representing a person who felt more connected to Dwayne because he'd shown them his humanity rather than just his success. But the real transformation happened over the next few weeks. Inspired by the response to his vulnerable post, Dwayne began sharing more authentic content. Instead of just posting workout videos and motivational quotes, he started sharing moments of doubt, stories of failure, behind-the-scenes struggles, and honest reflections about the challenges of balancing success with mental health. Each post generated more engagement than the last, but more importantly, they created a different kind of relationship between Dwayne and his audience. Sarah Kim tracked the analytics obsessively, and what she discovered changed how she thought about social media marketing forever. Dwayne's authentic posts weren't just getting more likes and comments, they were driving real business results. People who engaged with his vulnerable content were more likely to see his movies, buy products he endorsed, and support his business ventures. It's like they went from being fans of your career to being invested in your success as a person, Sarah explained during one of their weekly strategy meetings. The impact was measurable and dramatic. Within 6 months of that first vulnerable post, Dwayne's social media following had grown from 8.5 million to 25 million across all platforms. More importantly, his engagement rate, the percentage of followers who actually interacted with his content, increased by 400%. But the real breakthrough came when major brands started reaching out, not just for traditional endorsements, but for partnerships that leveraged Dwayne's authentic connection with his audience. Under Armour approached him not just to wear their clothes, but to co-create a line that reflected his philosophy about strength and vulnerability. The campaign, which featured real stories from Dwayne's life alongside the products, became one of the most successful celebrity partnerships in the company's history. Teremana Tequila, which Dwayne launched in 2020, was built entirely on the foundation of authentic social media connection he developed starting with that 3 a.m. text message. Instead of traditional advertising, the brand was promoted through honest stories about Dwayne's family, his heritage, and his values. The authentic approach helped Teremana become one of the fastest-growing spirit brands in history. But perhaps the most meaningful impact was on other celebrities and public figures, who began to see the power of authentic social media presence. Dwayne proved that you don't have to choose between being successful and being human, said Marcus Chin, a social media strategist who worked with several A-list clients. He showed that vulnerability could be a competitive advantage rather than a weakness. The ripple effects extended beyond celebrity culture. Businesses, politicians, and thought leaders began incorporating more authentic, vulnerable content into their social media strategies, recognizing that audiences were hungry for real connection rather than polished perfection. Today, Dwayne Johnson has over 400 million followers across all social media platforms, making him one of the most followed people in the world. But more than the numbers, it's the quality of connection he's built with his audience that sets him apart. His social media empire generates tens of millions of dollars in direct revenue annually through sponsored content, product launches, and business promotion. But it also serves as the foundation for every other aspect of his career, from movie negotiations to business partnerships. When asked about the evolution of his social media presence, Dwayne always credits that accidental text message as the turning point. "I thought I was having a moment of weakness," he said in a rare interview about his social media strategy. "But it turned out to be a moment of strength that I didn't recognize at the time." Sarah Kim, who has since started her own social media consulting firm specializing in authentic celebrity branding, keeps a screenshot of that original 3 a.m. text message in her office. That message taught me that the most powerful content isn't about showing people how perfect you are, she explains to clients. It's about showing them how human you are, and how you deal with being human in a way that inspires them to be better humans themselves. The text message that was supposed to be private became the blueprint for public connection. The moment of vulnerability that Dwayne thought would weaken his brand actually became its greatest strength. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can share isn't your success, it's your struggle. And sometimes the message you send by mistake becomes the message that changes everything. Today, when young entrepreneurs and celebrities ask Dwayne for advice about building authentic brands, he always tells them the same thing. Don't be afraid to show people that you're human. They're not following you because you're perfect. They're following you because you're real. The social media empire that started with a 3 a.m. text message continues to grow, not because it showcases strength, but because it celebrates the courage to be vulnerable in a world that often rewards pretending to be invincible.